Welcome again to Getting to Work. It's the podcast of NCI Works. I'm John Spencer from Starved Rock Media, joined today by a guy who, he went from high school band choir director to CFO of a community college in three easy steps, right, Matt?
Yeah. I think that's an understatement. Let's put it that way.
Matt Seaton is the CFO, the Vice President of Business Services and Finance, an official title at Illinois Valley Community College. Hi, Matt.
Hi. Thanks, John, for having me.
Thanks for making time today to talk to and about pathways in education. That's where we're going to end up. But we want to talk a little bit more about you and hear your fascinating journey on this pathway in education. A little bit about where you started, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in a small southeastern Illinois town called Mount Carmel. Grew up, my dad was chief of police. My mom was a school secretary. So exiting high school, this is where the story starts to kind of meander a little bit. I was going to become either an architect or an engineer.
And if I can interrupt for just a second, you must have had a horrible childhood. You couldn't get away with anything.
You know what?
Police dad and secretary at the school mom?
You tell that story just like I do, because I use that same phrase. My brother and I could not get away with anything in our lives growing up. Somebody was going to find out about it, no doubt.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, but my first experience with college was actually local community college in Mount Carmel called Wabash Valley. And it was there that I encountered a few teachers that really changed my thought about what I wanted to do with my life. And I went from wanting to be an architect or an engineer to wanting to become a music teacher in a few short years. And so, it's kind of like, how are those two related? And they're really not in a lot of ways. So I graduated from Wabash Valley. I went on to Eastern Illinois University, and I got my bachelor's degree in music education. And I had the fortunate opportunity to go back to my hometown to become a high school band and choir director. And I did that for 7 years. And then throughout my life, it always seems like there's somebody in my professional life who has some insight on my skill, my talents, and they encourage me to do different things. And that becomes a little bit of a theme from here on out. So as a high school band director, I had a few school administrators in my life that saw something in me that encouraged them to encourage me to go on to pursue school administration. So I did so. And at age 27, I became a high school principal in the Red Hill School District in Bridgeport, Illinois. And then once again, the superintendent who was at the district at the time was retiring and encouraged me to go back to school once again to get my superintendent's license. And in 2009, I became the superintendent at Red Hill Schools in Bridgeport, Illinois. And at that time, I was 29 years old, and I believe still I was the youngest superintendent in the state at that time.
I bet you were. I mean, that's just an incredible, I'll let you catch your breath for a second. I mean, I'm exhausted just listening to that. Many people, that would be a fabulous career right there.
Sure.
You're not even close to done.
And throughout this process too, my wife and I, we got married in 2001. We had our first child in 2003, and then we proceeded to have 5 more children between then and 2014. So we have 6 kids. The oldest is 18 years old in college now, and the youngest are 7-year-old twins. So
does the phrase overachiever mean anything?
Well, and my wife was an educator, and she was going to school to get her master's. I was going to school to get all these advanced degrees, wow, so on and so forth. So it was just, it was kind of a very busy time in our lives. So at Red Hill, superintendent from 2009 to 2014. In 2014, we decided it was time for a change. We started looking around the state, and I was always a high school guy. I always had passion for that age group in particular. I taught high school. I was high school principal. And so when I had the opportunity to interview at Streeter with the Streeter board at that time, there was an immediate connection. Let me put it that way. I felt very prepared for that position. And I feel like the board at that time really saw something in me that this was going to be a good fit. So in a few short weeks, we had a deal. We were moving to Streeter. My wife was pregnant with twins at the time. We were crazy. There was no other way to put it.
Yeah.
And came to Streeter, 2014, served there as the superintendent until just this past June. And again, somebody saw something in me that would help me grow as a professional. And Dr. Jerry Corcoran, the president here at IV, reached out to me and asked if I had any interest in this position. Actually, he sent out an email advertising the position, and I responded, said, "Hey, tell me a little bit more." So, and he's been wonderful, just absolutely wonderful to work with ever since I've come to IV.
Yeah, Jerry is a terrific guy. Where would we be, Matt, without these people who have mentored, but have seen things in us and encouraged us to try and do different things?
Exactly. And my path through school administration would have never occurred had it not been for those folks in my life, because I was actively looking at going to college again at Auburn University to get my master's in music. And had I gone down that pathway, I certainly would have never ended up in the seat that I'm in today.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, from engineer, architect, those were the initial, and then all of a sudden, no, wait, we're doing music, and now you're in charge of the money, all of the finance at IVCC. That's just nuts, man.
Right. Yeah, and it's things you learn along the way. It's mentors throughout the time that I was at Streeter. When I came to Streeter in 2014, they had a major budget crisis going on, $1 million deficit. And you remember the state of Illinois during the 2010s wasn't the best money manager around the block anyway. Understatement. But, we had to take some pretty drastic measures. But within a few short years, we turned that fiscal picture around. I learned a lot through the process that I still use today about how to manage responsibly, how to manage public funds and large tax dollars. And it really was an excellent opportunity for me to grow my skills that directly relate to what I'm doing today for Illinois Valley Community College.
And you're obviously still growing and learning, and there's a lot to be said about lifelong learners. Without doubt.
Yeah. One thing I glazed over in the process was I got my doctorate as well in 2018 and 19. So, still continuing to go to school. I got my doctorate through Illinois State, so I'm headed down to Bloomington, to take classes on the side. It's if you pay attention enough, the opportunities for learning will find you, as they did throughout my career. You step into a situation, and instead of shying away from taking action or being involved in the solution process, if you insert yourself and learn everything you can about the situation, you use those skills. Inevitably, you'll use those skills again somewhere down the road to tackle a similar situation or another situation.
Absolutely. It's just being open to those opportunities. And I apologize for not addressing you properly as Dr. Seaton.
I still don't even like the title. I come from a very small town in southeastern Illinois where the only doctors were the dentists and the pediatricians, when nobody knew what a PhD was down there back then, at least nobody that I knew. Yeah. So it's still a title that I haven't gotten used to. Let's put it that way.
Obviously, ISU, a terrific school. You went to Eastern
right.
as well, correct?
Right.
But community college has played a major role in your life. Obviously, you mentioned you went to, and now you're working for one at IVCC.
Right. And it's funny how some things come full circle in your life sometimes. And while I was at Wabash Valley College, I had the opportunity to participate in a number of activities that I wouldn't have had I gone straight to a four-year university. For example, Wabash Valley College has a very reputable radio and TV broadcast program, and I actually was an on-air DJ for 3 hours a week because it was all student run. So here I am giving an interview.
Matt, I've got a couple shifts to fill this weekend. If you're not doing anything,
I'll buzz over. I think I still remember that technology from the late 90s.
I bet
I'm sure nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed at all. No, you'd pick it right up though, I'm sure.
But the community college spirit, the mission of the community college has always been something that has interested me and been something that I've cared about. And I've had not only the opportunity to go to community college, but now am working at one, and I truly can value the impact that it has on the citizens of the area that it serves, and the programs that it offers, and the financial benefits that it offers for some just to come and get a 1-year certificate or a 2-year transfer degree, or, and I still am amazed every time I get on our website of all of the things that Ivy has to offer to our community. And we, do everything we can to advertise that. And so I am just a full onboard supporter of the mission of the college.
With Ivy and of course Sauk Valley as well, we're very fortunate to have a couple of outstanding community colleges in our workforce area. And that brings us to pathways in education, and how that plays a role and has played a role for you, and of course can for others who may be looking to make a career shift or just try to figure out what the heck they want to do.
Right. So one of the great things about Ivy that I've learned in the very short time I've been here is we are always adapting. We are always changing the way we do things or changing our programming to fit the needs of the community. Very recently, we adopted some new industrial maintenance programming and manufacturing programming to meet the very specific needs of some of our local manufacturers. And I said earlier, from a 1-year program all the way down to just taking a night class once a semester to build skills in things like cybersecurity, criminology, early childhood education, dental assisting. These are in-demand jobs that folks can go out and find everywhere. Truck driver training. I mean, that #1 in the books right now. Can't find a truck driver anywhere. And we are running full sections of truck driver training morning, noon, and night right now. So the opportunities that exist here, in conjunction with a lot of the monies that are out there for students looking to change careers, or students, first-time college students, financial aid, Pell Grants, MAP grants, it's really a time where we're not turning anybody away for lack of ability to pay, because there are so many resources out there to get them into our programs.
And that's fantastic. And of course, one of the huge advantages of community college is that it is so extremely affordable and that there are so many resources. Exactly what does Pathways in Education, what role does that play?
Pathways in Education, so we work with our local high schools to start what we call career pathways. And you can take, let's take welding, for example. So a number of our area schools have welding programs that are building skills incrementally up to the college level, in which they can come in here and in a 1-year time can get a credential or a welding certificate that then becomes an industry standard. So they can walk into an employer, say, I've got this experience, I've passed these tests, and I am a certified welder, and I'm good enough to do anything you got going on here. But then we have an advanced welding certificate, and then we have a follow-up certificate to that. So the pathway becomes planting those seeds early in the high school career for the 18 to 20-year-old bracket, and then building upon those skills from, say, sophomore, junior years in high school, all the way up through age 20, 21. So they've got the collection of 4 or 5 years of experience and industry credentials to go out and find employment with. And for our non-traditional students, our adult learners, our continuing ed, who just want to go back for a new career or want to go back and learn something, you can start that pathway in an evening course once a week. And sometimes you can even start it at your local high school. We offer classes spread out through the district at the high school, so you don't have to travel all the way to campus. And then when the time is right, you can step into maybe a full semester of work so that you could step into the workforce at a higher credential later on.
Fantastic resources. Obviously, you can find out more at nciworks.org and also at ivcc.org.
Edu.
I knew it wasn't. That. Should know that. You're right across the street.
Yeah.
I just walk across the street when I want to know something.
That's right. We're full of good stuff over here.
Absolutely. Always growing, always learning. Any parting thoughts, advice, Doctor, before we go?
Always listen to those people around you and what they are encouraging you to do, because you never know what person is going to see just a little bit of a glimpse of your potential or your future self that you don't even recognize is there. And I certainly wouldn't be in the seat that I am today without people like that in my life. And those people exist, whether it be a family member or a community member or a colleague or a friend. Say, hey, you should really try something. You should really go to Ivy, take a class. You should really step out of your comfort zone, because you won't regret it. I promise it.
Yeah. Never be afraid to try something new. Absolutely. And rely on those successful people around you for advice and support. Most of the time, they're more than willing to help.
Of course. Yes.
Matt, it's been great meeting you. Thanks for sharing some time today on the Getting to Work podcast.
No problem, John. Thanks for having me.
That's Dr. Matt Seaton from IVCC, the CFO, Vice President of Business Services and Finance. And I never did ask, what was your instrument? What was your main instrument?
Actually got my degree in vocal music. So I was opera, Broadway singer, but I'm a trombone player and a percussionist on the side, I guess.
All right. I'm never even close to your level, but a tromboner from back in my high school days. So thanks again for the time, Matt. Take care.
You too, John. Thank you.
You bet. And again, if you want to find out more about pathways in education, you can go to nciworks.org.